Okay, welcome to the third part of the first dive post cave course 2023 at the Murra El-Elevyn cave in the Nullarbor Plain. At this point, we've now returned to the semi-permanent line. We'd left some permanent we'd left some personal markers on that line to indicate that we were in the deeper section of the cave. And once all the team members had caught up and removed their personal markers, and that was confirmed, we moved on down the line. So essentially at this point we're heading back towards the exit, but the goal is not to exit the cave at this point. We're looking for another jump. And for those of you who don't cave dive, a jump is where you can run a line off the main line to look at a feature or something different in the cave. You can see the uh, the other diver was signaling me to let me know that's where the jump was. I had just reached it at that point, and he's indicating to me that he's going to essentially run that line. And now the reason he was running the lines instead of the lead diver was simply because he knew where the jumps led and where to actually um, essentially place the line in general, what side of the cave and what position to run the line and not create line traps where, if you've never seen it before, of course it's possible to do, but it's far easier if you've seen those passages before and seen essentially where the best tie-off points are and best positioning for the line is. It's of course very important in a cave to run line so you don't create line traps or entanglement issues for divers, that's for sure. That's just indicating to the third diver the exit is down the line and we're heading down the jump. The now lead diver hands off his camera and off we go looking for our goal. It's a very interesting part of the cave. Again, very different to really any other part of the cave in the way it's formed and the features. It's essentially a massive rock slide and it's really quite steep. So we're at about the 12-meter mark, I think, when we um, started moving towards this jump, and it ascended quite rapidly. You can see some beautiful shimmering water at the top there. We're just about to breach into the absolutely stunning snowflake room. As you can see, it's quite a large chamber. It doesn't lead to the surface, so it is a closed chamber. Its air is breathable, so we're able to take our rigs out, our masks off, and breathe the air in there. And we essentially stayed in there for some time and had a reasonably long chat, about 10 minutes or so, and just spent some time looking around at the amazing salt formations on the walls and on the roof. And um, you can certainly tell why they call it the snowflake room. There's another room, uh, well, I think it's a little bit smaller than this one, called the crystal room, which we did go to as well, but not on this dive. Unfortunately, I don't have video of that because that essentially was part of one of the course dives, and of course, you can't take cameras on training dives. As you can see, really quite high ceilings, and It does run a quite a long way back, and whether that rockfall actually went to the surface one day or not, who knows? But the surface would be roughly 90 meters above that. So in terms of elevation, we're sort of about 90 meters from the very top of the opening of the cave or the hole, down to the water's edge. And here we are just heading back. At this point, just following the jump line. A little bit sad that all good things have to come to an end, but this is the part where we do begin the exit. As you can see, there's two arrows on that line. They both head towards the exit, which is the direction that we're about to head. As we come past, we take our personal markers off that we had placed there before. The personal markers that indicate that we are on that jump rather than down the other part of the line. There's also a personal marker at the start of the dive as well, just to let everybody know that there are divers in the cave. Now, here I started swimming off, and very soon one of the divers grabs my attention. You can see his light shaking around. So I turned around to see if he had a problem. I signaled him to see if he was okay, and he gave me the signal back. It was quite evident looking at him that he didn't have a problem. The water's exceptionally clear in this cave, and you can see for a very long way away. What was happening was he was looking at a marker, and essentially it wasn't one of our markers, and we were the only ones in the cave at this time. So we were trying to work out whose it was. It had initials on it, and the initials did match one of the other divers. This line was the semi-permanent line, and this was the line that the instructor had put in at the very start of the course, and it was coming back out again once we had finished in the cave. So it was very clear to us who was in the cave and who wasn't. The only divers there were members of our group. So we knew that the diver who matched that marker was not diving that day. So we decided to leave the marker there and just inform her that it was still there, just in case it was left for a reason, because sometimes divers do leave personal markers on main lines as reference points for things like air consumption or turn points for different reasons, for whatever planning that they have. And a lot of this section of the cave was in the first video, but going the other way. And if you do see them fairly close together, the videos, you will notice that it doesn't look the same going out as it is coming in. And the features of a cave and the look of a cave changes markedly depending on the angle and the direction that you're looking at it in. You certainly can't rely on features or what you think are known points to be able to find your way out of a cave. And that's why we run a permanent line, or always run some sort of line, no matter where we go in the cave, to be able to ensure that we do have a line that can lead us to the exit and back to safety in case something goes wrong. And it would be exceptionally easy to get lost, especially in these large galleries and large caves. And if you had an issue such as your lights gave out, you had a silt out, had difficulty seeing, it would be very, very hard to find the way to the entrance, no doubt at all. One of the nicer features of this cave is the silt in the cave is actually quite heavy. So if you do manage to kick up a fair bit of silt and restrict your vision, it doesn't last for very long. You could literally wait 5 or 10 minutes and that would clear. Again, it's very hard to make out on video the undulations, the level differences that we're sort of swimming through, and it does really change markedly. It changes so quickly, this cave, from 12 meters up to 8 meters, back to 10 meters, back to 6. This is now coming back to that low flattener that we passed through in the first video. As you can see, you can recognize it's a low flattener, but feature-wise it does look different to what it does coming in. And you'll also notice that the videographer is now the lead diver, and that's because he was the last diver or the third diver being let in. So in cave diving, you come out in order of going in, so you simply immediately reverse the order when you want to turn around. So the third diver becomes the first, the second will stay the second, and the first will be the first if you have three divers. Sorry, the third. Um, and that's really quite practical, because usually the lead diver would be the one responsible for running lines, and if those lines need to be brought up, then they're brought up behind the other divers, so those divers always have a line to follow. And here we are coming up to one of the other jumps. That is a jump that we had run before, which sort of dips down under those rocks, sort of where you can see the camera now. It's a fairly wide passage, reasonably low, but it goes back and it connects to another actual permanent line in the cave that we didn't run in this video. And it's quite a nice little jump to do, actually. And this is getting reasonably close to the exit now. So very soon we should be coming past the final jump. Again, the jump's denoted by those double arrows. Negotiating some of the sort of features of the cave there. It's always ever changing, and it's always an interesting dive, because you really need to think a little bit ahead about where you're going to place yourself, and how you're going to negotiate all the different sort of obstacles in the cave. There's the first jump of the cave, and that one goes through a fairly reasonably tight restriction, as I understand. and of course is prone to a lot more silting because of that reason. Some restrictions you simply can't help but silting up because there's no other way than to touch the bottom. But in general in cave, what we try to do is try to touch nothing if we can, and then only when it's necessary do we touch something. And the water in here, I should mention, is actually quite salty, and there are lots and lots of fossils all throughout the cave. If you look fairly closely, you can see, and it's quite clear that at some point in the past this was actually a sea. And about this point, we start heading fairly significantly up in level. Not sure what happened there. But this is one of the final climbs up. Essentially, we'll come up to another reasonably narrow piece to pass through, not overly tight or anything like that. Then we drop over the back and start making our way towards the exit, essentially. And in typical fashion, the GoPro here ran out of batteries just before we breached the water, so just where you see the lights now. I hope you enjoyed the videos.